Hi, I'm Christy Rost. If you've seen me on PBS or your local TV station, you know I'm passionate about celebrating around the table with family and friends. Making it deliciously memorable is as easy as this. And so let's start with the charcuterie board. This charcuterie board is designed for a crowd, but you may only be doing one for yourself or for 2 or 3 people. Or maybe you've got a small group coming over. That's the beauty of a charcuterie board. You can make it any size you want, and it can be any ingredients that you love. So let's go through some of the things that I have here today. I have on the board beautiful meats, a selection of salamis and soppressata, and charcuterie of all types. Here I have capicola. These are all from Nyman Ranch, a purveyor of very high quality meats. And so on this board here, I have some prosciutto. Now prosciutto is always almost razor thin, and a lot of times people like to roll it up, but I like to drape it. Because if you drape it, you can make it look however you want, and it always looks so appetizing. So I'm just going to do that with a few pieces, just like this. And then people are just kind of drawn to it. See that? And you can even make it into little flowers if you want. So drape it very loosely like this, makes it really attractive. I have a selection of cheeses and a selection of crackers, but I also am using these beautiful Cosmic Crisp apples. Now, apples are wonderful because they're very high in antioxidants and they have a beautiful crunch. Cosmic Crisp I particularly love because they don't brown and they have a very high sugar content. So if you wait until the end as you're designing your board, and I always like to have a little design in my mind, then you can arrange them at the end so they just kind of cradle the meats and create a beautiful pattern as you go. Look at this. Isn't this pretty? And then I can take it right around the mustard that I have for my Nyman Ranch meats, and create almost like a little wave right through the board. Now, one of the things that I did last summer, because I loved being outdoors for our summer gatherings last year, I'm gonna keep this wave going. One of the things I did last year was I created individual charcuterie plates. And so I had these wonderful rectangular plates, and I just created all of my little charcuterie on each one, and then everybody had their own. And that's a really nice way to create kind of a preset charcuterie. But something like this is something for people to really get into and just have their favorites. So let's go over some of the things I have here. I have pine nuts and dried cranberries, dried apricots, yummy dried mangoes, a selection of Greek olives, and I have hazelnuts and dried cherries and macadamia nuts and these beautiful red walnuts. Then I have all my beautiful charcuterie, the meats from Nyman Ranch, and I have dried mission figs. You're going to see the mission figs again a little later in another recipe. An assortment of crackers and the fresh grapes that are always so nice and sweet, and then the apples. And the apples I absolutely love from Cosmic Crisp because they are so crisp, but you're going to see them again later too because I'm going to bake with them. They're wonderful out of hand as well as with baking. So create all the things you love on your charcuterie board, and then add your crackers and things. And you don't have to keep it all in baskets. Just kind of free flow your ingredients around. Let people come and make their own. So this is a great way to start any kind of gathering, but it also makes a great meal all by itself. So we are using it as the beginning of a wonderful meal, and I look forward to sharing the next recipe with you right after this. Now that we've finished that fabulous charcuterie board, let's move on to dinner. So I have a little olive oil, about a tablespoon, in this saucepan. And this is the saucepan from Analon X. Look at this fabulous feature that makes cooking really special. And so I just swirl my olive oil, add in some celery, chopped onion. I always like to use sweet onion. Sweet onion doesn't make you cry the way white onion does. And I'm going to add in Cosmic Crisp apples, and I've diced them. Notice I leave the skin on them, okay? So you want all that extra fiber. And some golden raisins. I'm going to turn up the heat and saute this until the vegetables and fruits start to soften a bit. Hear the sizzle? That smells so, so good. So we're just going to let that saute for about 2 minutes until everything begins to soften. Once these soften just a bit, then I add in my chicken broth or stock, whichever, and canned is fine. Homemade's fabulous, but canned is just fine. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. Now, if you are using a canned broth, it already has salt in it, so go easy. Don't overdo. And some freshly ground pepper. And I'm going to bring this to a boil, and I will cover it. Once it comes to a boil, add in the couscous. Give it a quick stir. Here's the best part. We're going to just set it aside and let it do its thing. Now that we've finished the couscous and put that aside, now comes the pork loin chops with a bourbon reduction and dried figs. It sounds exotic. It is so easy to make. You're gonna love this. I'm using the sear technology on my Analon X pan. And watch, when I add the oil to the pan, it will all go to the center, which is wonderful because that's where the searing's really going to take place, and it's going to help the meat to caramelize. I have these gorgeous pork chops. These are all from Niman Ranch. They're each about 1 inch thick. I'm going to season them with some coarse salt, and you always want to season both sides, but to make it easy and less messy, I season one side, and then once it hits the pan, then I season the other side. And get freshly ground black pepper, and you always want to season your meat really well. There we go. Then I just take these and stick them in the pan. You're going to hear that sizzle. Oh, look at this beautiful one right here. And here's the third, and we'll put 4 in here. Fabulous. Now I can season the other side. And the black pepper again. Now these are going to cook for about 4 minutes, and what we're doing is called searing, and that means I'm going to get them nice and brown on the one side. They'll cook for about 4 minutes on the first side. Then I'm going to turn them over, let them cook again for about 4 minutes. Then depending on the thickness of the pork chops, they'll take another 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and they'll be all done. So while that's happening, I'm going to use these Mission dried figs. These are so sweet, and you can see when they're cut in half, which is what I'm going to do. You can see all the little tiny seeds. When they are cooked in a dish like this, they get very, very sweet. And so I just cut them in half. If they have a little stem at the top, just cut that off. Cut them in half. You can add as many as you want, but I like to have a good 16, 18, 20 Mission figs. So those are ready. I also have some shallot in here, And you're going to love this recipe because it uses bourbon reduction. And that's kind of unusual because in most recipes you see a wine reduction. But I thought, I'm a bourbon kind of girl, so we're gonna go with bourbon in this one. It's gonna make an incredibly rich sauce. So let's see what's happening here. Oh, see, it's already turning brown. Now, the other thing is, in the bottom of this pan, all of the caramelization of the juices and the meat is also turning the bottom of the pan brown, and that's really important. And you'll notice I'm not flipping the meat, because if I let it sear all the way, then you get it really, really brown on the bottom before flipping, then all that brown that's in the bottom of the pan, that's flavor. And you need flavor for a sauce. So anytime you see someone put meat in a pan and they're planning to make a sauce, and they start turning and flipping, you're never gonna get sauce out of that. So there we go. That is the basis of flavor. We'll turn each of these. Oh, these are gonna be incredible. So we're going to let these cook for about another 4 minutes to sear the other side. Then I will flip them again a couple of times. So give me a minute to do that. When you have the sear technology of a pan like this Analon X, and you've got gorgeous pork chops like this from Nyman Ranch, you have the ingredients for an incredible meal. So I'm transferring the chops to a platter to let them stay warm. And then I'm going to make up the sauce. So I have some shallots, and I'm just going to saute this briefly. And you'll notice that the shallots start to pick up the color from the bottom of the pan. And remember, I said the color, that is flavor that's trapped in there. Then I add in garlic. Just about 2 cloves of large garlic. Saute this. Garlic burns quickly, so just saute it very briefly. Then I'm going to deglaze the pan, and deglazing means I'm going to add liquid and then scrape up any bits that are on the bottom of the pan. So this is about 1 cup of bourbon. Oh, let's add a little extra, why not? There you go. And I scrape up all the brown bits at the bottom. This smells incredible, but then bourbon always does. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of beef stock. So I have about a half cup of beef stock here. And I'm going to bring this to a boil. So I'm going to turn up the heat, we'll put it on high, bring it to a boil, and when it comes to a boil, then I'm going to boil it until the liquid is reduced by half. As it reduces, it is concentrating the flavors that will create a very rich sauce. So let's do that. So the sauce has reduced by half, and now I can add in 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, which is going to give just a little touch of sweetness to this, and the dried figs, which are halved. And I'm going to reduce this a little bit more, just a tiny bit. The figs are going to help this sauce to thicken up. The sauce has reduced, and now it is thick and rich and sweet. And now I'm going to spoon them on either side of the pork chops. And you'll notice I'm using a metal spoon in this Analon X pan. It actually will take that without damaging the pan, even though it is non-stick. Look at that. Look at that beautiful, beautiful sauce. And the dried figs. Take some parsley and just accent this a little bit in the center. And every single bite is going to be absolutely incredibly sweet and savory all at the same time. That is a gorgeous dish. Now that we've finished plating the pork loin chops, now I'll plate the couscous. Take a fork and just fluff it up like this. Just loosen it all up. This is the kind of meal I love to do. It's just real easy. Everything goes together easily. And I also love things I can make ahead. You can do couscous ahead and then just heat it in the microwave and it's set to go. Go. Oh my gosh. And those few ingredients, look how that couscous just fluffs right up. This will feed a crowd, my gosh. That's why I love it. Now, when it comes to cooking ahead, the other thing you could do with the pork chops is you could cook them ahead and reserve all of the sauce or the searing in the bottom. Come back, put that in the fridge and come back and do that just before you're ready to serve and make your sauce then. And then just kind of reheat your pork chops a little bit. Now, let's take some bacon and kick this thing into high gear. This is crumbled Niman Ranch bacon. It's all crisp and wonderful. Yum, yum, yum. And who doesn't love bacon? And crumble that on top of your couscous. Always save a few pieces for the cook. So here we have couscous with cosmic crisp apples, golden raisins, and a bacon crumble from Niman Ranch. And here we have Niman Ranch pork loin chops with a bourbon reduction and dried figs. That's a meal I'm ready to serve. Every great gathering ends with a very special dessert, and this one is sure to make everyone excited. This is the apple and rhubarb galette. And so let's start with pastry. I have 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. Then I'm going to add a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon, and 2 tablespoons of sugar, just to sweeten the pastry a little bit. Then I just pulse it a couple moments in the food processor. Now I add in ice cold butter, and I've cubed it. This is 1 1/4 cups of unsalted butter. I like to control how much salt is in my recipe. Put this back in the food processor and pulse again until the butter is about the size of a pea. Then add ice cold water. Now, these are secrets I learned from my grandmother. Ice cold butter, ice cold water. This is what helps make pastry light, tender, and flaky. So I'll start with 4 tablespoons of water, because you can always add extra, and then pulse again. And I'm seeing how it comes together. I look at it and feel, and I can feel it's almost there. Needs just a little more moisture, so I'm not even going to add in the total amount of a 5th tablespoon. Put the lid back on, and I'm going to whirl this until it comes into a ball. See? And once it starts chasing itself into a ball, then it's ready. Oh yeah. Oh, that feels just absolutely beautiful. Then take this pastry, wrap it up in plastic wrap, and put it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes up to an hour, or you can put it overnight in the fridge and come back to it the next day. Or you can make it and freeze it for up to 2 months. So I have one that's ready, and I just took it out of the fridge a few minutes ago, and I just let it soften just a bit. I have extra flour handy, and I have put some on my cover to this is like a little sock that goes over my rolling pin. And then the other piece of secret that I got from my grandmother is a wonderful pastry cloth. It always comes with the sock. And then just roll this out. Now, since this is a galette, that means it's an open-faced tart as opposed to something that goes into a pie plate or something of that nature. We're going to do this as a free-form tart. And you'll notice that as the edges start to pull apart, and this is where a lot of people run into trouble with pastry, is it cracks and then it keeps cracking, and then they have trouble getting it into a pie dish or a galette. If you just stop periodically and put those back together with your fingers, those little edges, then your pastry will be just so easy to work with. Once the pastry is all rolled out, look how easy it is to maneuver. Then I take a pan. I'm using a baking sheet. This is the Analon bakeware. I'm covering it with a piece of parchment paper, which will pick up all of the juices that may come out of this tart as it bakes. Then set this aside and let's make the filling. So I'll just fold up my pastry cloth because I can use this another time. And then to wash them, I just wash mine by hand with a little bit of detergent. So I have Cosmic Crisp apples. This is about 2 pounds, which is 3 medium apples. And I have rhubarb. Look how gorgeous this is. Now you'll notice on the apples, I left the skins on for several reasons. One, because it keeps the fiber of the apples in this recipe. 2, 2/3 cup of sugar. 2, because it's a pretty color with the red of the rhubarb. And 3, because it gives beautiful texture. So then I'm going to add just a little bit of flour to this to thicken up the juices, and some freshly ground nutmeg. I just use my microplane for this and grate this in. Ooh, beautiful. About a 1/4 teaspoon or so. A little bit of cinnamon. And then just stir this together. Look how pretty the colors are. In the meantime, I preheated my oven to 400 degrees. This is going to bake for about 40 to 50 minutes in the oven. And I put all of this right in the center. Pretty colors. Oh my gosh. That is so beautiful. So you're going to have the sweetness of the apples, the tartness of the rhubarb, beautiful cinnamon, and freshly grated nutmeg. And I always use Saigon cinnamon. I like it better because it's more pungent. And fold it gently. So if you don't have a pie plate, see, no problem. You can make this beautiful galette regardless. And I like to make mine the day of, but if you're going to make it the day before, then put it in the fridge to store it. Then an egg wash, very simple. 1 egg with about a tablespoon of water. Just whip this up with a fork, and then take a pastry brush. Coat the outside very lightly. This will make the pastry brown beautifully, give it a nice crisp texture. This is home baking at its very best. I take a little bit of sparkling sugar, sparkle the edge, and that's what's going to give this tart the look of a bakery. Then put this in the oven. Today I shared tips for creating impressive charcuterie boards, a savory recipe for pork loin chops with bourbon reduction and dried figs, a quick and easy couscous with apples, golden raisins, and a bacon crumble, and for dessert, a apple rhubarb galette with a flaky, buttery pastry that'll make you go weak in the knees. Whether you create the entire menu or select your favorite, I hope this show makes you feel ready to celebrate with family and friends. Thanks for joining me today on At Home with Christy Rost on Eat This TV.